The late 1960s were a whirlwind for Elvis Presley. He was back bigger than ever. His music was topping charts, his movies were still packing theaters, and the adoration of millions followed his every move like a loyal, thunderous shadow. Graceland, his beloved home, was no longer just a house. It was a fortress, a symbol, a gilded cage built from the dreams of a simple boy from Tupelo, Mississippi. Inside its walls, surrounded by an ever-present entourage, Elvis often found himself surprisingly alone. He'd walk through the opulent rooms, past the gold records glinting on the walls, the velvet furniture, the vast array of gifts from fans that piled up like colorful mountains. Each item was a testament to his fame, a physical representation of the dreams he'd fulfilled. Yet sometimes, especially late at night when the house was quiet and the Memphis stars seemed to whisper secrets only he could hear, a hollow feeling would settle deep in his chest. He had everything, it seemed. Money, fame, love, adoration. But he also had sleepless nights, a restless spirit, and a gnawing sense that something was missing. Something profound that all the glittering trappings of stardom couldn't provide. He'd stare out of his bedroom window past the gates of Graceland into the dark, quiet streets, wondering what lay beyond the applause and the flashing cameras. He yearned for simplicity, for genuine connection that wasn't filtered through the lens of celebrity. He sought meaning beyond the next hit, song, or movie deal. His spiritual side was always present, a quiet undercurrent in the sometimes turbulent river of his life. He read books on philosophy, religion, and spirituality, sometimes for hours long into the night. He searched for answers, for peace, for a way to reconcile the boy from Tupelo with the global phenomenon he had become. He prayed, he meditated, he sought solace in the teachings he found in his well-worn Bible. But even these sacred practices felt at times like a solitary journey. One crisp autumn evening, a rare quiet settled over Graceland. His cousins and friends, the Memphis Mafia, were out, leaving Elvis with a rare moment of true solitude. He paced his bedroom, the plush carpet muffling his footsteps. He'd just finished a demanding movie shoot, and the relentless schedule had left him drained. Not just physically, but emotionally. The energy he poured into his performances, the constant on switch he had to maintain, left him utterly spent. He stopped by his large four-poster bed, running a hand over the smooth, polished wood of the nightstand. On it sat a stack of books, a half-empty glass of milk, and a small framed photo of his mother, Gladys, her kind eyes looking out at him. He missed her terribly, that deep, unconditional love she'd given him. She had understood him in a way no one else truly could, seen past the stardom to the boy beneath. Her memory was a constant reminder of simpler times, of the values he'd grown up with. He picked up a book on Eastern philosophy, but his mind refused to settle. He was restless, his thoughts chasing each other like wild horses. He thought about the upcoming charity event he was committed to attending. It was a gala for a children's hospital in Memphis, a place he often visited, a cause he deeply believed in. The children, innocent and unburdened by the complexities of the adult world, always managed to touch his heart in a way nothing else could. They didn't see Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. They saw a kind man who sang songs and made them laugh. In their eyes, he found a fleeting sense of genuine connection, a brief escape from the weight of his own crown. He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. The weight of gold, he thought, could sometimes be heavier than any chains. Craved authenticity, a moment of pure, unadulterated human connection that had nothing to do with fame or fortune. He yearned for a feeling of belonging that wasn't contingent on his public image. He wanted to be seen, truly seen, for who he was, not what he was. Little did he know, that yearning was about to lead him to a very unexpected encounter, one that would quietly, profoundly change the course of his private life forever. The next day, at that bustling charity event, he would find a glimpse of the simple, honest connection he so desperately craved, a connection that would eventually manifest in the most humble, yet most treasured gift he would ever receive. Chandeliers sparkled, reflecting off the polished marble floors. Women in shimmering gowns and men in crisp tuxedos, mingled their laughter and conversations, creating a lively hum. It was the annual fundraising gala for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, an event Elvis always made a point to attend. He truly loved children, and the thought of helping sick kids resonated deeply with his compassionate nature. He arrived as always to a flurry of excitement. Flashbulbs popped, reporters shouted questions, and a wave of eager fans pressed against the velvet ropes. Elvis, ever the professional, offered his famous smile, waved, and made his way through the throng, escorted by his security detail. He shook hands, exchanged pleasantries, and posed for pictures. He was charming, attentive, and every inch the superstar, yet inside the familiar detachment settled over him. He felt like he was playing a part, a role he knew by heart, but one that increasingly felt separate from his true self. He signed autographs for donors, listened politely to speeches, and tried to engage in small talk. But his mind drifted. He scanned the room, observing the various groups of people, the power players, the socialites, the dedicated hospital staff. He longed for a quiet corner, a moment to just breathe and be. That's when he saw her. She wasn't in the main crowd, nor was she dressed in the designer gowns that filled the room. She was standing quietly by a large potted palm, near the edge of the ballroom, a little apart from the swirling activity. She was an older woman, perhaps in her late 60s or early 70s, with a gentle, kind face, framed by soft white hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her dress was simple, a muted green that blended into the background, not drawing attention. She wasn't fawning or trying to catch his eye like so many others. She just stood there, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips as she watched the lively scene. What struck Elvis was her stillness amidst the chaos. While everyone else seemed to be vying for attention, for a handshake, for a glance, she exuded a quiet calm. There was a peacefulness about her that he found instantly captivating. She was watching a group of children from the hospital who, dressed in their best, were enjoying the fancy desserts being offered. Her eyes held a deep, unburdened empathy, a warmth that seemed to radiate even from a distance. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met across the crowded room. There was no gasp, no excited rush from her, just a gentle, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't the look of a fan, nor the gaze of someone trying to gain something from him. It was the look of a person who saw him, truly, saw him beyond the fame and the flashing lights. It was a look that acknowledged his presence. Yes, but also seemed to acknowledge his humanity, his weariness, perhaps even the hidden spiritual longing he carried. Elvis felt a subtle pull, a curious urge to approach her. His handlers were guiding him toward the head table, where important donors were waiting, but his gaze kept drifting back to the woman in green. She wasn't making any effort to stand out, yet she shone with a quiet dignity. He noticed her hands clasped loosely in front of her, looked strong yet gentle, with faint wrinkles that told a story of a life well lived. He finished his obligations at the head table, forced a few more smiles, and made a mental note. He had to find a way to speak to her. It was a strange impulse, one he rarely acted on in such public settings. Usually he maintained a carefully constructed barrier between himself and the world, but something about this woman, her unassuming presence, her calm aura, broke through that barrier. As the evening progressed, Elvis found himself subtly maneuvering through the crowd, excusing himself from various conversations, his eyes always scanning for that glimmer of green. He saw her speaking briefly to one of the hospital nurses, her voice soft and low. He realized she wasn't a celebrity or a major donor, but perhaps a longtime volunteer, someone who genuinely cared about the cause, not just the social event. Finally, he saw his chance. She had moved closer to an exit, perhaps preparing to leave. His security was a few steps behind him, momentarily distracted. Took a deep breath, the scent of expensive perfume and roses filling the air, and walked purposefully toward her. This wasn't about an autograph or a photo. It was about something far more meaningful, something he couldn't quite name yet, but felt drawn to with an undeniable force. He hoped she wouldn't be startled, that she would still see him as just a man seeking a moment of genuine connection. He knew instinctively that this encounter could be different, could offer him the authentic human touch he so deeply craved. Elvis approached the woman cautiously, not wanting to startle her. She was watching a young boy, probably a patient, excitedly tell his mother about the chocolate fountain. Her smile was warm, genuine. "Excuse me," Elvis said, his voice softer than his stage voice, but still carrying that distinctive Memphis drawl. The woman turned her eyes, widening just slightly in surprise, but there was no shock, no adulation. She simply looked at him, her gaze calm and steady. "Mr. Presley," she said, her voice gentle with a slight comforting tremor of age, "what a pleasure to meet you." "Please call me Elvis," he replied, a genuine smile replacing his practiced one. "I saw you earlier. You seemed different, calmer than everyone else here." He gestured vaguely at the bustling ballroom. She chuckled softly. "Oh, I'm just Elsie, and perhaps I've just had more practice at finding the quiet spots in a noisy world." "Life teaches you that, Elsie," he repeated, liking the sound of it. "Are you with the hospital a volunteer?" "Yes, for many years now," she confirmed. "I help out where I can, mainly with the younger children. They're such precious spirits." Her eyes twinkled. "This hospital does wonderful work. It's a testament to hope, isn't it?" Elvis nodded, feeling a connection forming. "It is. It really is. It means a lot to me to be able to help out." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Gets overwhelming. Sometimes all this, the crowds, the demands. Do you ever feel that way? Like you're just part of a machine?" Elsie's kind eyes seemed to see right through him. "Oh, I imagine your machine is much grander and louder than mine, Elvis. But yes, everyone feels overwhelmed sometimes. The world can be a very loud place. That's why it's so important to find your own quiet space, your anchor." He looked at her, intrigued. "An anchor? What do you mean?" She smiled. "Something that reminds you of what's real, what truly matters. Something that connects you to your deepest self, to your faith, to the simple truths that never change, no matter how much the world outside spins." She paused, then added, "You have a good heart, Elvis. I can see it, and a searching soul." Her words resonated deep within him. No one had ever articulated his inner struggle so simply, so directly, and with such genuine understanding. He felt a sense of relief, a loosening of the tight knot in his chest. "Thank you, Elsie," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "That means a lot." She reached into the pocket of her simple green dress. Her movements were slow and deliberate. She pulled out a small object no bigger than his thumb, wrapped in a piece of soft, worn cloth. She carefully unwrapped it, revealing a small, smooth wooden cross, perfectly proportioned, with a simple dark cord attached. It wasn't polished or shiny. The wood was naturally dark, almost black, and felt smooth from handling. "My late husband Thomas carved this for me many years ago," she explained, her gaze softening as she looked at the cross. "He was a quiet man, a carpenter, and he always said that a simple piece of wood, carved with intention, could hold more strength than any stone or metal. He said this cross was to remind me of unwavering faith, and that true strength comes not from resisting the storms, but from finding peace within them. I feel you need it, Elvis, more than I do now. It has brought me comfort through many of life's challenges. I believe it can do the same for you." She extended her hand, offering the cross to him. Elvis hesitated for a moment, overwhelmed by the pure, unselfish nature of the gift. He was used to receiving grand, expensive presents, things that reflected his status. But this small, humble piece of wood was offered with such genuine care and insight that it felt infinitely more valuable. He gently took the cross from her hand. It was surprisingly warm, radiating a quiet energy. "Elsie," he began, his voice barely a whisper. I don't know what to say. It's beautiful and so meaningful." "No need for words, dear," she said, her smile returning. "Just carry it with you. Let it be your anchor when the world gets too loud." She patted his hand gently. "Now I must be going. My bus will be here soon." Before he could offer her a ride or ask for her contact information, she gave him another small, warm smile and turned, disappearing quietly into the crowd, as if she were never there. Elvis stood there for a moment, the small wooden cross clutched in his hand, feeling a profound sense of gratitude and wonder. In the midst of all the glitz and glamour, a simple elderly woman had seen his heart and offered him a gift more precious than gold. He knew without a doubt that this wasn't just a piece of wood. It was a connection, a message, and a promise of solace, carved not just by a carpenter's hands, but by a truly pure soul. He held it tightly, feeling its warmth spread to his palm, a warmth that promised to stay with him. Elvis returned to Graceland that night, the small wooden cross still clutched in his hand. He bypassed his usual late-night conversations with his friends, walking straight to his bedroom. The house felt cavernous and empty, but the cross in his palm seemed to fill it with a new kind of quiet presence. He sat down on the edge of his bed, the opulent decor of the room suddenly feeling even more extravagant in contrast to the simple object he held. He unfolded his fingers and gazed at the cross. It was unassuming, plain, utterly devoid of flash. It wasn't sterling silver or studded with diamonds like some of the jewelry he owned. It was just wood, smooth and dark, from years of handling, a testament to Elsie's husband's craftsmanship and Elsie's own devotion. He thought of Elsie's eyes, so kind and understanding, and her gentle voice, an anchor she had called. Something that connects you to your deepest self, to your faith, to simple truths that never change. Her words echoed in his mind, soothing the restless energy that often plagued him. He initially placed the cross on his dresser amidst an array of expensive watches, cufflinks, and other trinkets. It looked out of place there, a humble pebble among glittering jewels, but his gaze kept returning to it. It stood out precisely because of its simplicity. It wasn't trying to impress, it simply was. Later, as he prepared for bed, he found himself drawn back to it. He picked it up again, turning it over in his fingers. The wood was surprisingly comforting, radiating a subtle warmth. He remembered Elsie saying her husband had carved it, that it represented unwavering faith and quiet strength in a noisy world. He felt a resonance with those words. His world was certainly noisy, a constant clamor of demands and expectations. Quiet strength was what he desperately sought. He didn't put it back on the dresser. Instead, he placed it carefully on his nightstand, right beside his worn Bible and the framed photo of his mother. It felt right there, nestled among the things that truly mattered to him, the things that grounded him when the world spun too fast. The next morning, he woke up and his eyes immediately went to the cross. It was the first thing he saw. He reached for it, his fingers tracing the smooth lines of the wood. A sense of calm settled over him, a quiet assurance. He wore it under his shirt for a few days, the cord resting against his chest. He felt its presence, a constant reminder of Elsie's kindness and the message she had imparted. It was a private comfort, a secret connection to something pure. He soon realized that wearing it always wasn't practical, especially with his stage outfit. So he made a habit of placing it on his nightstand before he went to sleep and picking it up first thing in the morning. Sometimes he'd just hold it for a few minutes, eyes closed, letting its quiet energy wash over him. It wasn't a superstitious thing. It was deeper than that. It was a tangible link to genuine human kindness, a symbol of the spiritual solace he so desperately sought. His friends and family at Graceland, the Memphis Mafia, might have noticed the small, unassuming cross, but they wouldn't have known its true significance. Elvis rarely spoke about his deeper spiritual convictions, or the moments of vulnerability he experienced. He kept that part of himself guarded, private. Cross became a silent confidant, a quiet companion that understood him without needing words. When he traveled for shows or movies, the cross always went with him. It wasn't packed away in his suitcase. It was carefully placed in his carry-on, or sometimes even in his pocket, a small weight that reminded him of home, of peace, and of the simple, profound encounter that had brought it into his life. He would place it on the nightstand of whatever hotel room he was in, no matter how grand or impersonal. It made every temporary space feel a little more like home, a little more sacred. It became his touchstone in moments of doubt, before a big show, during a restless night, or when the pressures of his career felt suffocating. He would reach for it. He'd run his thumb over its smooth surface, remembering Elsie's kind eyes and her quiet wisdom. It wasn't a magic charm, but it was a powerful reminder of his faith, of humility, and of the unwavering strength that lay not in external success, but in inner peace. The small wooden cross, given by a humble stranger, became more than just an object. It became a piece of his soul, a quiet companion on his extraordinary yet often lonely journey. It anchored him just as Elsie had promised. Life for Elvis continued at a breakneck pace. The late 60s bled into the early 70s, bringing more record-breaking performances in Las Vegas, more tours, more demands. The roar of the crowds was louder than ever, the adoration more intense. Yet the quiet hum of loneliness often buzzed beneath the surface of his glamorous life. It was during these moments, when the spotlight faded and the world went quiet, that the little wooden cross became his most constant companion. He kept it on his nightstand, always within reach. Sometimes, after a grueling concert, fueled by adrenaline and the lingering echoes of applause, he would find himself unable to sleep. He'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with the day's events, the pressures, the expectations. In those restless hours, he'd reach out and pick up the cross. The smooth, cool wood felt grounding in his palm. He'd run his thumb over its surface, feeling the subtle texture of the grain. It wasn't just an object. It was a connection, a quiet whisper in the night. It reminded him of Elsie, of her calm demeanor, and of her simple, profound words, unwavering faith, and quiet strength in a noisy world. He thought about how different Elsie's life must be from his own. No throngs of fans, no demanding colonel, no constant travel, just a humble life filled with purpose and service at the children's hospital. He often wondered if she knew the impact she'd had on him, if she ever thought about the famous singer she'd met that night. He doubted it. She didn't seem like the type to dwell on such things. She had simply given genuinely and without expectation. There were nights when the media scrutiny felt particularly harsh, when the headlines seemed to twist his words or portray him in a light he didn't recognize. He felt misunderstood, exposed. He'd pick up the cross then, and it would remind him that his true worth wasn't defined by what newspapers said or what critics thought. It was defined by his spirit, by his faith, by the simple truths Elsie had spoken of. The cross became a shield not against the world, but against the negative thoughts that sometimes clouded his own mind. Sometimes he'd just sit and hold it, praying silently. He wasn't a conventional churchgoer, but his faith was deep and personal. Cross was a tangible focus for his prayers, a reminder of a higher power, a constant source of hope. He would confide in it in a way, pouring out his heart to the silent piece of wood, knowing it held no judgment, only a steady presence. He'd pray for guidance, for peace, for strength to face the challenges of fame, and for the wisdom to remain true to himself. His close friends and bodyguards, the Memphis Mafia, were always around. They saw him with the cross sometimes. Some might have assumed it was just another religious trinket, like the many other medallions and charms he often wore. They never saw the profound connection, the deep solace he drew from it. He never explained its origins, keeping that story private. A sacred memory. The cross was a stark contrast to the material excess that surrounded him. Gold records, Cadillacs, custom-made jumpsuits, these were the symbols of his fame. But the little wooden cross represented something else entirely. Humility, spirituality, and the quiet dignity of a genuine human connection. It was a constant reminder that true value didn't lie in what you owned, but in who you were and what you believed in. He found himself touching it often, even unconsciously. Running his thumb over its smooth surface became a habit, a reflex whenever he felt a surge of anxiety or a moment of peace. It was a constant anchor, a reminder of the simple, honest values that his mother had instilled in him, and that Elsie had so gently reinforced. The whispers in the night, the doubts and fears that haunted him were often quieted by the tangible presence of this small, unassuming gift. It was a lifeline in the often turbulent sea of his celebrity. Years turned into a blur of performances, recording sessions, and public appearances. Elvis's life was a grand, spectacular show, constantly moving from one city to another, from one stage to the next. But no matter where he went, no matter how extravagant the hotel suite or how grand a tour bus, the small wooden cross was always there. It was his unseen anchor, a silent promise of continuity and peace in a world of constant change and overwhelming noise. He had a special place for it in his travel bag, a small velvet pouch where it lay nestled safe from being lost among his other belongings. As soon as he arrived in any new place, whether it was a suite at the Hilton in Las Vegas or a quieter retreat in Palm Springs, the cross was the first thing he would unpack and place on his bedside table. It was a ritual, a small act of grounding that helped him feel connected to something constant and enduring. His personal assistants and close friends, accustomed to his various spiritual practices and his collection of religious artifacts, might have seen it, but they never asked about it. It was simply part of Elvis's private world, one of the many unique items he kept close. For Elvis, its significance was too personal, too profound to articulate to others. It was a secret language spoken between his heart and the quiet strength he found within that simple piece of wood. He never wore it around his neck in public. It was too personal for display, too sacred. Its power lay in its quiet presence, its ability to be a discreet touchstone. When the cameras were flashing and the crowds were roaring, he knew it was waiting for him, a quiet sentinel in his private space. It reminded him that beneath the layers of rhinestones and fame, there was still the searching soul of the boy from Tupelo clinging to his faith. There were countless moments when the cross offered him silent support. Before stepping onto a massive stage, feeling the immense pressure of performing for thousands, he would often pause, take a deep breath, and touch the cross, drawing on the sense of calm it provided. It wasn't about luck. It was about connecting with his inner core, finding his center before he gave himself entirely to the audience. During long, lonely nights on the road, when sleep wouldn't come, and the weight of his responsibilities felt crushing, he would pick up the cross. Holding it, he'd remember Elsie's kind, knowing eyes, and her words about finding strength within. It helped him to quiet the swirling thoughts, to find a sense of peace even in the darkest hours. It was a constant reminder that even in isolation he was not truly alone. He had his faith and the enduring memory of a selfless act of kindness. Cross contrasted sharply with the material world that defined his public image. He had jets, Cadillacs, Graceland itself, symbols of extreme wealth and celebrity. But the cross represented something intangible, something that couldn't be bought or sold. It was a gift of the spirit, a connection to humility and genuine human connection. It was a quiet rebellion against the superficiality of fame, a constant reminder of the simple values he held dear. He often reflected on Elsie's words about an anchor. And indeed, it had become just that. In the swirling currents of his extraordinary life, it held him steady. It reminded him of his roots, of his faith, of the simple goodness that existed in the world far away from the blinding glare of the spotlight. It was a testament to the power of a single, genuine gesture, a silent, unwavering companion that witnessed his triumphs and his struggles, his public persona and his private heart, and never left his side. It was a symbol of his hidden search for peace, a search that continued relentlessly even as the world celebrated him as a king. The early to mid-1970s brought new challenges for Elvis, both personal and professional. The relentless touring took a heavy toll on his health. His marriage was under strain, eventually leading to divorce. His private battles with loneliness and the pressures of maintaining his image deepened. The world knew him as the king, but behind the dazzling jumpsuits and powerful performances, a quiet storm was gathering within him. During these increasingly difficult times, the small wooden cross became more vital than ever. It wasn't just a comfort. It was a lifeline. When he felt overwhelmed by the relentless demands of his schedule, when the pain of his personal life became unbearable, or when the media's scrutiny felt like a suffocating blanket, he would reach for it. There were nights when he felt utterly alone, despite being surrounded by his loyal friends and family. The grand rooms of Graceland could feel like a solitary prison. In those moments of deep despair, he would often pick up the cross, holding it tightly in his hand. The smooth, worn wood was a tangible link to a different kind of reality, one of simplicity, of genuine kindness, and of unwavering faith. He remembered Elsie's words. True strength comes not from resisting the storms, but from finding peace within them. Tried to live by that, tried to find a quiet space within himself amidst the chaos. Cross helped him focus, helped him center his thoughts on things beyond his immediate pain. It prompted him to pray, to reflect, to seek solace in the spiritual beliefs that had always been a part of him. One particularly difficult period came after his divorce. He was devastated, heartbroken, and felt a profound sense of failure. The public scrutiny was intense, adding another layer to his private anguish. He retreated into himself, spending more time alone in his room. During these days, the cross was almost constantly in his hand, or within his sight on the nightstand. He would often just sit and gaze at it, or run his thumb over its worn surface, as if drawing strength directly from the wood. It reminded him of Elsie, the humble woman who had seen past his fame to his deepest needs. She had offered him a gift of pure, selfless love and understanding. In a world where so much seemed conditional, where love and attention often felt tied to his celebrity, Elsie's gesture was a beacon of true, unconditional regard. He often thought about trying to find her again just to thank her, to tell her how much the cross meant to him, but he always hesitated. Their encounter had been so perfect, so pure in its brevity. He didn't want to risk tainting that memory with the complexities of his famous life. He felt it was better to cherish the profound impact of that single moment, to let Elsie remain the quiet, wise presence in his memory forever linked to the cross. His health struggles also began to manifest more acutely in these years. The toll of years of performing the constant touring and the unhealthy habits he developed to cope with the pressures of his life began to catch up with him. There were days when he felt exhausted, weak, and vulnerable. Cross became a symbol of his fight, a quiet reminder to hold onto hope, to find inner peace. Despite the pain, it was a silent testament to his resilience, his enduring spirit, and his unwavering belief in something greater than himself. In the midst of these storms, the cross remained his unwavering anchor. It was a constant, humble presence, offering a quiet strength that no amount of fame or fortune could provide. It bore witness to his struggles, his hopes, and his deep personal journey of faith, becoming more deeply entwined with his very being with each passing day. It was a beacon that reminded him that even the most famous king needed a quiet, secret place where he could simply be human, where he could find true solace. As the 1970s progressed, the small wooden cross became increasingly worn from constant handling. The dark wood, originally smooth, had gained a deeper, richer patina from Elvis's fingers. Tracing its contours over countless hours, it was no longer just a gift. It was an extension of himself, a physical representation of his enduring faith and his private search for peace. The simple cord that came with it had long since been removed, no longer needed. The cross itself was all that mattered. It was always on his nightstand beside his bed, a silent sentinel watching over him. It was the first thing his eyes would find when he woke up, and the last thing he would see before drifting off to sleep. In moments of deep thought, he would absent-mindedly pick it up, turning it over in his fingers, its familiar weight a comfort. His health continued to decline, and the physical and emotional burdens weighed heavily on him. The relentless schedule, the pressures of fame, and his growing dependence on medication to cope with pain and insomnia took a severe toll. He became more reclusive, finding solace in the quiet solitude of Graceland. In these increasingly isolated periods, the cross was a constant, unwavering presence. It reminded him of the simple kindness of strangers, of genuine human connection that fame couldn't buy and that the world so often lacked. Elsie, the woman who had given it to him, remained a vivid, cherished memory. He rarely spoke of her, keeping their encounter a sacred secret, but her wisdom and selfless generosity echoed in his mind, especially when he held the cross. It was a testament to the fact that the most profound gifts often came from the most unexpected sources, given purely out of love and understanding. Sometimes, a very close confidant, like his cousin Billy Smith or his father Vernon, might notice him holding the cross and ask about it. Elvis would offer a brief, vague explanation, saying it was a special gift from a kind woman who understood his spiritual path. He would emphasize its importance, its uniqueness, and how much it meant to him without revealing the full story of Elsie or the depth of his connection to it. It was his most cherished possession, precisely because it was so unassuming, so personal and untainted by the commercialism of his public life. The cross witnessed everything. It was there, through his moments of joy and triumph, the rare instances of peace he found, and the dark nights of struggle and despair. It was there when he wrestled with his demons, when he sought answers in his spiritual books, and when he simply yearned for a moment of quiet serenity. It became a symbol of his unwavering belief in God, a tangible link to his spiritual core that remained steadfast even when everything else seemed to crumble around him. Its worn surface, the softened edges, the deeper color of the wood, all spoke of time, of countless hours of being held, of providing solace. It was a testament to its endurance, just as his faith, though sometimes tested, endured. Cross wasn't about the grand gestures of his life. It was about the quiet strength, the inner resilience, the humble search for meaning that defined him beneath the surface. It was a reminder that even the king of rock and roll, surrounded by every material luxury imaginable, found his deepest comfort and connection in something so profoundly simple, so profoundly human. The final years of Elvis Presley's life were marked by increasing struggle. His health was failing, exacerbated by his reliance on various medications. The once boundless energy that had fueled his electrifying performances began to wane. He spent more and more time at Graceland, becoming increasingly reclusive, his world shrinking even as the legend of Elvis grew. In these difficult times, the small wooden cross became an even more constant companion, an ever-present source of comfort. It was always there on his nightstand, a silent anchor in his tumultuous existence. It was the first thing his eyes would focus on when he awoke, the familiar shape, a reassurance in the hazy moments between sleep and consciousness. And it was often the last thing his fingers would touch, a final grounding connection before he drifted off into restless slumber. He would often hold it, especially when the pain was bad, or when his thoughts spun out of control. The smooth, worn wood provided a tactile comfort, a sense of quiet strength. It wasn't a magic cure, but it was a focal point for his prayers, a tangible representation of his faith. He would whisper his hopes and fears, his longings for peace and understanding, to the silent piece of wood, knowing it held his secrets and offered a quiet solace no one else could. Cross symbolized so much to him in these twilight years. It was a symbol of hope, reminding him that even in his darkest hours there was a light, a spiritual connection that transcended his physical suffering. It was a symbol of peace, a promise of a tranquility that sometimes felt elusive in his waking life. And it was a symbol of the enduring power of genuine human connection, a memory of Elsie and her selfless kindness that had cut through the superficiality of his fame. He found himself contemplating his life more frequently. The meteoric rise, the unprecedented success, the adoring fans, all of it had been a dream come true. But it had also brought immense pressure, isolation, and a constant battle to stay true to himself. Cross, in its simple humility, reminded him of what truly mattered. Not the gold records or the sold-out stadiums, but the peace of his soul, the strength of his faith, and the genuine connections he had made along the way. His bedroom, once a vibrant hub of activity, became a sanctuary of quiet introspection. The cross lay there, a quiet witness to his contemplation, his prayers, and his moments of vulnerability. It was one of the few things he truly relied on, a touchstone in a world that felt increasingly out of his control. Those closest to him, his father Vernon, his cousin Billy, saw how deeply attached he was to it. They respected his privacy, understanding that it held a significance beyond their grasp. They never moved it, ensuring it was always precisely where he wanted it, right by his bedside. It was a silent agreement, a recognition of his most profound need for comfort and spiritual grounding. In his last days, as his body weakened and his spirit struggled, the cross remained by his side. It was a constant, solid presence, a quiet promise of eternal peace. It had been with him through the wildest highs and the lowest lows, a testament to a connection forged in genuine kindness, a symbol of a faith that remained unwavering until the very end. The last embrace he offered to the world was not just to his family or his fans, but to the quiet solace of this simple wooden gift that had journeyed with him, comforting him through the extraordinary tapestry of his life. The morning of August 16, 1977, was like any other at Graceland. Yet it would forever change the world. The sun rose over Memphis, casting a gentle light through the bedroom windows of the king of rock and roll. On his bedside table, among a few books and a glass of water, lay the small, worn wooden cross. It was exactly where it had always been for so many years, a silent, humble sentinel. Elvis Presley, the boy from Tupelo, who became a global icon, had passed away. The news would soon shock the world, sending ripples of grief across continents. Tributes would pour in, his music would be played on every radio station, and millions would mourn the loss of a legend. His legacy of music, charisma, and undeniable talent would be etched into history forever. But for those who knew him best, and for the quiet spirit of Elvis himself, the small wooden cross, resting by his bed, told a different, more profound story. It wasn't a story of fame and fortune, of sold-out concerts and screaming fans. It was a story of humility, of searching, and of the enduring power of human connection and unwavering faith. Cross given by a kind, unassuming woman named Elsie had been with him through it all. It had seen his private struggles and his quiet triumphs. It had been there during his sleepless nights, his moments of doubt, and his deepest prayers. It had served as his anchor, his touchstone, his secret solace in a world that was often too loud, too demanding, and too superficial. It represented the unseen spiritual side of Elvis, the part that truly mattered to him, the part that he guarded so fiercely. It was a testament to his simple, deep faith, to his longing for authenticity, and to his inherent goodness that reached out for genuine connection. The cross was not just a piece of wood. It was a symbol of the profound impact a single, selfless act of kindness could have. Elsie, in her simple wisdom, had offered him exactly what he needed, a piece of quiet strength that resonated with his searching soul. In the end, amidst all the treasures and accolades that filled Graceland, this one unassuming gift remained by his bedside. It was a quiet statement, a final testament to where Elvis truly found his comfort, his peace, and his strength. It wasn't in the gold records or the dazzling jumpsuits, but in the enduring power of faith, in the humility of a shared spiritual journey, and in the memory of a genuine, pure-hearted connection. The small wooden cross, worn smooth by years of his touch, remains a powerful symbol of Elvis Presley's spiritual journey. It reminds us that beyond the king of rock and roll, there was a man who yearned for peace, who sought solace in faith, and who found profound comfort in a humble gift given with nothing but pure, unconditional love. It is a heartwarming reminder that the most precious things in life are often not the grandest but the simplest, the most genuine, and the most deeply felt. And in his death as in life, it remained by his bedside a silent, enduring testament to his soul's most heartfelt longing.